essentially, if you're unfamiliar, if you're the NFL or the NBA, you're allowed to pool together every team's rights and sell them as a national package. That's how every single major sports league has done it. Obviously, it applies to the NFL more so than NBA, MLB, who only carve out some of their rights for national games and then leave the rest to be distributed by the teams themselves. The NFL, of course, doesn't have local rights. All of their rights are sold nationally. So it is very pertinent to them, this antitrust exemption. And it was pretty interesting that the only league that was not there at the hearing was, in fact, the NFL.
Well, that's like, is it fair to say that's why the federal government might have interest in this? Because what's at issue is pre-existing federal legislation. Like, it's something where at least they kind of feel like, oh, this is our thing. Like, this is our deal to manage going forward.
That's exactly right. And the crux of the issue here is that the act, which was written in 1961 that granted these antitrust exemptions, only applies to television broadcasts. So there's a huge concern over, does this actually apply to streaming, which is obviously kind of where things are headed and where these sports leagues are headed. The NBA just did a huge deal with Amazon. And of course, as we just mentioned, the NFL just announced an exclusive game is going to be on YouTube this year, the Friday NFL Brazil game. And that kind of brings me to why the NFL would decide to do that. As part of this legislation, if you've read Awful Announcing, you probably know this already. The NFL is actually restricted as to when they can broadcast games on Fridays and Saturdays throughout the fall. So they are essentially, the window, I believe, is from the second weekend of September through the second weekend of December. Within that window, the NFL is not allowed to broadcast games on television if it's a Friday or a Saturday.
Which is to protect high school and college football and
precisely
keep those traditions alive for people, either on TV or, I guess, with high school, more likely just going, I guess, would kind of have been the idea once upon a time.
Right, exactly. And by putting their Friday game in Brazil on a streaming service, especially on a service like YouTube that you can access for free, the NFL, who has obviously been keen on kind of adding these dates, picking off dates in the calendar that they can put exclusive windows, and kind of encroaching on the college and high school games by scheduling a lot more games on Fridays and Saturdays in the last few years than they have previously. By putting it on a free streaming service, I think their logic here is to, hopefully avoid some of the scrutiny that would come if it was, say, behind a paywall on a streaming service, because, normally they're not allowed to schedule these games on the days that they would like to anyway. There's an exception this year, just how the calendar shakes out. The NFL Brazil game is actually prior to the window. But in future years, like next year, for instance, if the NFL wanted to do this game, it would fall within that restricted window. So I think this is kind of the start of, making sure that they have all their ducks in a row and hopefully having the best chance possible to allow themselves to schedule these games.
I think that is absolutely why they would be interested. I also feel like this is a pretty revolutionary moment in sports broadcasting in general. I wonder, because the fact that it's free on YouTube, I think, is pretty huge, because it's combining the, all the things that these leagues want, putting a game on a digital platform, the data that they can get, the access to more people and especially younger people.
And crucially, this is also what the federal government wants. They want these games to be accessible and free or at very low cost to consumers, right? Because when you're granting an antitrust exemption, it is incumbent upon the businesses involved. In this case, this is the leagues, to make sure that they are, the antitrust exemption was for good reason, right? If they start using their powers to, kind of raise prices for consumers, make stuff less accessible, that becomes an issue, and that's why the federal government would want to get involved.
I believe there's a Latin term for, spirit of the law that gets thrown around, but it's like that type of thing, right? It's like operating in good faith. And so, yeah, that makes sense. But it's different than a lot of the other ones that we've seen because it's free. It's not you don't have to be NFL, Sunday ticket subscriber. You don't have to even, be like a YouTube live TV, that product. You don't have to subscribe to that. It is youtube.com homepage, NFL game. That's what's going to happen. And it's just different than anything we've ever seen. And I think it's going to open up the floodgates. So like the YouTube chief business officer gave a quote to CNBC and probably others today. She said, people spend over 350 million hours watching official NFL content on YouTube. So it's fitting and thrilling to continue building that relationship. Streaming the Friday night game to fans for free around the world will mark YouTube's first time as a live NFL broadcaster, and we'll do it in a way that only YouTube can, with an interactive viewing experience and creators right at the center of the experience. If I were a PR person, I would have said no experience twice, but that's fine. I wonder if it's going to be free forever. Like, that's kind of the place that I start with this. Like, I don't want to get too ahead of my skis and be like, this is changing the whole world. And then next year you got to click in and then it makes you pay, like how they have movies on YouTube in theory, but you have to pay $5 and it's like, renting it on iTunes or whatever. I wonder if this is just a little appetizer for everybody and then things will change, or if this really would be their strategy.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, for the NFL, they're really not sacrificing much. Actually, they're kind of having their cake and eating it too, because they're still getting a huge rights payout from Google/YouTube here. I think Peacock paid over $100 million for their NFL Brazil game last year. I'm sure Google paid 9 figures to the NFL this year. But I'm sure part of that deal was the stipulation that this would have to be broadcast for free. So maybe in the future, who knows what the regulatory environment is looking like for the NFL. Maybe they become a little bit more bold and brazen in their business practices and allow a YouTube to start charging for a game like this. But I think the whole point of this specific deal is that it is free.
What do you think of all this, Ben?
You said it's a transformative time for like the way we view sports, and obviously it is. I think it's such a transformative time just for the NFL in general. Like, it just feels like it from a TV viewing standpoint. Like, it's funny, we spend so much time talking and reporting on and analyzing these TV deals, and then just on a whim they decide, like, you know what, we're actually going to have a Friday game now during week 1 too. Or we're going to have an international, like, they're just finding new ways.
Yeah, and by the way, it's in Brazil, a place we never even would have thought they could play until 2 years ago too.
Right. Like, they're just finding new ways to carve out new TV packages, to eventize every event, not only during the regular season and playoffs, but throughout the offseason. Like, we're going to get to the point where there are TV rights for the owners meetings, like down in Palm Beach. Like, it's getting crazy the way they're finding new ways to sell this.
Yeah. The NFL chief media officer in the Wall Street Journal today said the combine hasn't quite hit its ceiling as a TV event. And I was like, God,
yeah,
if that's true, I'm going to tap out pretty soon here.
Oh yeah. Like, I think we're heading toward the draft being a full 7 days, like 1 day for each round. Like, they are just finding new, like, we are at the very start of whatever the NFL is doing now moving forward. And obviously streaming is a big part of all of this, but I know I've brought this up before, but my first NFL season at Awful Announcing culminated with that. Well, didn't culminate, but included that Peacock exclusive playoff game between the Chiefs and Dolphins, where everybody froze their fingers off. And like, the outrage over that game and people having to buy a Peacock subscription 18 months ago compared to where we are now is just like insane. But yeah, I mean, the idea of it going to YouTube and going to Google and it being free is definitely interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see if it will stay that way. I was just thinking as you were talking about it, like, obviously it will be on the front page. Like, it will not be hard to find when you get to YouTube. But like, have you ever searched for a movie trailer and you're not quite sure if a movie trailer even exists yet? And people have pieced together like oh, the Batman 2 trailer using old footage. I like the idea of people looking for an NFL game and like you have to go through all these like fake NFL games that have been uploaded to YouTube first. That's where my mind went with that.
I have that with movie soundtracks on Spotify.
Yeah.
It's like a mess. There's like 70 playlists that fans have made that are like songs that remind me of, Sinners or whatever. It's like, okay, well, that's not what I'm looking for. I would like to just listen to the score. But yeah, I mean, we should also say like YouTube's uniquely equipped to make it free because they have the ad infrastructure to feel comfortable that they'll monetize it. Probably not break even or make money, but far closer to that than most of these platforms can do. But if the NFL is in like this bachelor phase, I feel like, where they basically have a relationship with every traditional and streaming platform that they possibly could. And when you look overseas, that's even more true probably. And they're everywhere that they could possibly want to be. And we're already in the arms race for 4 years from now when everybody assumes that they will opt out of their current deal. And Roger Goodell has said, like, we are a kingmaker. I mean, he didn't say it that way, but he told Pat McAfee like 18 months ago, talking about the Peacock game, he's like, we know we can build a platform for these partners we already have. And they have a vested interest in NBC's health. I think the league knows that these traditional networks need the NFL and they're going to kind of be good partners on their end. But also, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And they're finding that out sooner than later rather than waiting until 2029 and making like a really risky bet that, okay, Peacock's where we're going. We're just going to hope Peacock works. It's like, well, no, we have all these years of these exclusive games on ESPN Plus or on Peacock or, now on Prime and Amazon and Netflix where we can see if it works and then probably solidify and consolidate over time. Am I the only one who has an interest in the creators being in the comment from the YouTube exec? Is this, how much do you guys buy that this is, as YouTube especially gets more involved, going to be a part of the way that some portion of fans are consuming football? Does this seem soon? Does this seem off in the distance? Does this seem like it's just going to annoy everybody? What's the vibe check on this?
I'd imagine you're the most qualified to speak on that, Brendon.
That's why I'm bouncing it off you, because I'm up in the clouds just assuming that, this is the future and we're just we're all going to be watching the NBA on Twitch in 2 years or whatever. But what do you guys think?
I won't be, but like
okay.
You might be, and people your age might be, but I think I'm aged like out of that demographic, or at least there hasn't been. Although I guess like the Pat McAfee watch-alongs, like I consumed some of the college football playoff watching those, and those aren't totally dissimilar, right? So like, I think there's definitely something to that. For me, it's like I'm just an old guy who's going to be watching the games though. Usually I don't, that's kind of bells and whistles for me.
Yeah. There's clearly an audience for it. I think it's only growing. And I think your piece on iShowSpeed really highlighted that like, this is not something that's going away. And it's really something that leagues should be leaning into. And I'm sure this YouTube deal, part of that, the reason the NFL wanted to do it was to get some of these creators involved.
Yeah, I think YouTube's just uniquely equipped because obviously they are the platform where these people are already putting out content, right? And so the idea that they can tap somebody like iShowSpeed or anybody, it's going to be more natural and in my opinion, probably much more effective than Alex Cooper doing this thing on Peacock that no one pays attention to during the Olympics, right? And she's still huge. It's not like it hurt her to get a paycheck from Peacock and have probably very few people watch that, but it wasn't really seamless and a fundamental part of NBC's plan for how people consume the Olympics. Whereas, I mean, this is the initial statement from YouTube about this deal, and they're already talking about it, which just tells you where their mind is at. And I've talked to people who make like podcast type content on YouTube who have already said that the Sunday Ticket deal and the leagues and the platform's promotion of the NFL, they've seen an explosion of their own numbers just because of that business partnership. And I would imagine that that'll only grow and people's experience on YouTube will feel a little more like NFL centric than it has before.